Have you ever felt like a puppet on invisible strings, dancing to someone else's tune without even realizing it? In this video, we're about to pull back the curtain on every manipulation tactic ever used to influence your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Prepare yourself to uncover the secrets of how manipulation works, how to recognize it, and most importantly, how to protect yourself from it. The first tactic is love bombing. Love bombing is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator showers the victim with excessive affection, praise, and attention to gain control over them. Manipulators use love bombing to create an intense, overwhelming sense of connection and dependency. They might give lavish gifts, constantly compliment the victim, and express undying love and devotion early in the relationship. Once the victim is emotionally invested, the manipulator gradually begins to exert control and manipulate the victim's actions and feelings. The initial overwhelming affection can make the victim feel special and valued, but it also creates a strong emotional dependency. When the manipulator starts to withhold affection or introduce control tactics, the victim feels confused and desperate to regain the initial intensity of the relationship, often complying with the manipulator's demands. In a romantic relationship, one partner might initially overwhelm the other with constant messages, grand gestures, and declarations of love. As the relationship progresses, they start to demand more time and control over the victim's actions, creating a dependency that is hard to break. Recognizing the signs of love bombing and understanding that genuine relationships develop over time can help protect against this manipulative tactic. It's important to maintain personal boundaries and take time to evaluate the authenticity of someone's affection. Another tactic is the silent treatment. This is a form of emotional manipulation where the manipulator withholds communication to punish and control the victim. Manipulators use the silent treatment by refusing to speak, acknowledge, or engage with the victim. This withdrawal of communication creates a sense of isolation and confusion, making the victim feel ignored and unimportant. The victim often feels compelled to apologize or comply with the manipulator's demands to restore communication. The silent treatment can cause significant emotional distress, leading to feelings of loneliness, worthlessness, and anxiety. It undermines the victim's self-esteem and can make them more compliant to avoid further silent treatment. In a friendship, one person might stop responding to calls and messages after a disagreement, leaving the other person feeling confused and desperate to resolve the issue, often at the expense of their own needs or boundaries. Effective communication and setting boundaries are essential in dealing with the silent treatment. It's important to recognize that withholding communication is a form of manipulation and to seek support from others when needed. Another tactic is gaslighting. This is a form of psychological manipulation where the manipulator attempts to make the victim doubt their own perceptions, memories, and sanity. The term originates from the 1938 play Gaslight, where a husband tries to drive his wife insane by dimming the gas lights and denying it when she notices. Gaslighting works through a series of tactics designed to confuse and destabilize the victim. These include telling blatant lies, denying they ever said something even though there is evidence, using what's near and dear to you as ammunition, wearing you down over time, and projecting. By repeatedly questioning the victim's reality, the manipulator sows seeds of doubt, leading the victim to question their own sanity. The psychological effects of gaslighting are profound. Victims often feel confused, anxious, and unable to trust their own thoughts and feelings. They may start to believe they are overly sensitive or irrational, which can lead to a decrease in self-esteem and an increase in dependency on the manipulator for a sense of reality. For example, in a relationship where one partner constantly lies about their whereabouts and actions, when confronted, they deny it vehemently, even producing false evidence or recounting events in a way that makes the other partner question their own memory. Over time, the victim starts to doubt their perception and increasingly relies on the manipulator for validation of what is real and what is not. Recognizing gaslighting behaviors is vital for preserving your mental health. Trusting your own perceptions and seeking support from trusted friends or professionals can help you regain confidence and clarity. Another tactic is playing the victim. This is a tactic where the manipulator portrays themselves as the wronged party to avoid responsibility and manipulate others' actions. Manipulators play the victim by exaggerating or fabricating their own suffering, blaming others for their problems, and seeking sympathy and support to deflect criticism and accountability. This tactic shifts focus from the manipulator's behavior to their alleged suffering, making it difficult for others to hold them accountable. Victims of this tactic often feel confused and guilty. They might doubt their own actions and feel responsible for the manipulator's suffering, leading them to act in ways that appease the manipulator while neglecting their own needs and boundaries. In a workplace, an employee might consistently miss deadlines and perform poorly, but claim they are being unfairly treated or overwhelmed by personal issues whenever confronted. This shifts the focus away from their performance and makes others feel guilty for holding them accountable. It is essential to distinguish genuine hardship from manipulative victimhood. Setting clear boundaries and focusing on facts rather than emotions can help in dealing with individuals who play the victim. Guilt tripping. This is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator makes the victim feel guilty for their actions or feelings to control their behavior. Manipulators use guilt tripping by pointing out past mistakes, highlighting sacrifices they've made, or implying that the victim is selfish or ungrateful. The aim is to instill a sense of guilt and obligation, making the victim more likely to comply with the manipulator's demands. Victims of guilt tripping often feel a deep sense of shame and responsibility, leading them to act against their own best interests to appease the manipulator. This can result in a constant state of anxiety and self-doubt, as well as a decreased ability to assert personal boundaries. In family dynamics, a parent might remind their adult child of the sacrifices they made, raising them, whenever the child does something the parent disapproves of. This makes the child feel guilty and obligated to comply with the parent's wishes, even when it is not in their best interest. Setting boundaries and recognizing that you are not responsible for the manipulator's feelings are essential steps in preventing guilt tripping. Assertiveness and self-respect are key to maintaining healthy relationships. Another tactic is isolation. Isolation, in the context of manipulation, refers to tactics used to separate the victim from their support network, making them more dependent on the manipulator. Manipulators isolate victims by undermining their relationships with friends and family, spreading lies or rumors, or creating a dependency on the manipulator for social interaction and emotional support. This makes it easier for the manipulator to control and influence the victim without external interference. Isolation leads to feelings of loneliness and helplessness. Without a support network, victims are more vulnerable to further manipulation and abuse. Their sense of reality and self-worth becomes increasingly dependent on the manipulator. An abusive partner might discourage their significant other from seeing friends and family, claiming that these relationships are toxic or that they are the only one who truly cares about them. Over time, the victim becomes isolated and more reliant on the abusive partner for emotional support and validation. Maintaining connections with loved ones and seeking external perspectives are crucial for resisting isolation tactics. Building a strong, independent support network can provide the strength needed to break free from manipulation. Triangulation. Triangulation is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator uses a third party to create jealousy and competition, thereby gaining control over the victim. Manipulators use triangulation by involving another person in the dynamic, either by comparing the victim unfavorably to them, creating conflicts, or seeking their support to reinforce the manipulator's perspective. This tactic creates a sense of rivalry and insecurity in the victim, making them more dependent on the manipulator's approval. Triangulation can lead to feelings of jealousy, insecurity, and conflict. The victim may feel isolated and unsure of their own worth, making them more susceptible to the manipulator's influence. In a romantic relationship, one partner might frequently mention an ex-partner or a close friend, implying that the victim doesn't measure up. This creates jealousy and insecurity, making the victim more eager to gain the manipulator's approval. Trust and open communication are essential in countering triangulation. It's important to recognize when someone is using a third party to manipulate and to address the issue directly with the parties involved. Smear campaigns. Smear campaigns are a manipulative tactic where the manipulator spreads false or exaggerated information to ruin the victim's reputation. Manipulators use smear campaigns by spreading rumors, making false accusations, or selectively sharing information to paint the victim in a negative light. This tactic isolates the victim and damages their reputation, making them more vulnerable to further manipulation. Smear campaigns can cause significant social and emotional damage. Victims may feel isolated, betrayed, and anxious about their reputations. The fear of further attacks can make them more compliant with the manipulator's demands. In a political setting, a candidate might spread false information about their opponent to damage their reputation and gain an advantage. This creates a hostile environment where the victim feels constantly under attack. Integrity and resilience are crucial in dealing with smear campaigns. It's important to maintain your own sense of self-worth and seek support from trusted individuals to counteract the manipulator's attacks. Threats or coercion. Threats and coercion involve using fear and intimidation to control the victim's actions and decisions. Manipulators use threats of physical harm, emotional abuse, financial consequences, or social repercussions to instill fear and compliance. The constant threat of negative consequences creates a sense of powerlessness and urgency in the victim, making them more likely to comply with the manipulator's demands. The fear induced by threats and coercion can lead to chronic anxiety, depression, and a feeling of entrapment. Victims may feel that they have no choice but to comply with the manipulator's demands, sacrificing their own well-being and autonomy. In a personal relationship, one partner might threaten to leave, harm themselves, or ruin the other partner's reputation if their demands are not met. This creates a climate of fear and control, making the victim feel trapped. Recognizing the signs of coercion and seeking help from trusted individuals or authorities can provide the support needed to break free from this manipulative tactic. It's important to understand that threats and coercion are unacceptable in any relationship. Emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator uses threats, guilt, and manipulation to control the victim's actions and emotions. Manipulators use emotional blackmail by threatening to harm themselves, end the relationship, or expose the victim's secrets if their demands are not met. This creates a sense of urgency and fear in the victim, making them more likely to comply to avoid the threatened consequences. Emotional blackmail can lead to chronic anxiety, depression, and a feeling of entrapment. Victims may feel that they have no choice but to comply with the manipulator's demands, sacrificing their own well-being and autonomy. In a family dynamic, a parent might threaten to disown their child or cut them off financially if they don't follow a specific career path. This creates a sense of fear and obligation, making the child more likely to comply. Emotional independence and seeking external support are crucial in dealing with emotional blackmail. It's important to recognize that threats and manipulation are not acceptable and to seek help when needed. Shaming. Shaming is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator uses humiliation and criticism to control and demean the victim. Manipulators use shaming by pointing out the victim's perceived flaws, comparing them unfavorably to others, or publicly humiliating them. This tactic undermines the victim's self-esteem and creates a sense of inadequacy, making them more likely to comply with the manipulator's demands to avoid further shame. Shaming can cause deep emotional damage, leading to feelings of worthlessness, depression, and anxiety. Victims may internalize the criticism and develop a negative self-image, making them more vulnerable to further manipulation. In a professional setting, a supervisor might publicly criticize an employee's work in front of colleagues, making them feel humiliated and desperate to improve their performance to avoid further shaming. Building self-worth and resilience is crucial in dealing with shaming. It's important to recognize that everyone has flaws and that no one deserves to be humiliated or demeaned. Aggressive jokes. Aggressive jokes are a form of manipulation where the manipulator uses humor to demean and control the victim. Manipulators use aggressive jokes by making hurtful or demeaning comments under the guise of humor. When the victim reacts negatively, the manipulator dismisses their feelings, claiming it was just a joke and implying that the victim is overly sensitive. This tactic undermines the victim's confidence and creates a sense of isolation. Aggressive jokes can cause significant emotional distress, leading to feelings of inadequacy and isolation. The victim may begin to doubt their own reactions and feelings, making them more vulnerable to further manipulation. In a social setting, a friend might make jokes about another person's appearance or abilities, then dismiss any hurt feelings by saying, "I'm just kidding." This creates an environment where the victim feels they can't express their true feelings without being ridiculed. Respect and sensitivity in humor are crucial for healthy relationships. It's important to stand up for yourself and make it clear that hurtful jokes are not acceptable. Projection. Projection is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator attributes their own feelings, thoughts, or behaviors to the victim. Manipulators use projection by accusing the victim of feelings or actions that the manipulators themselves are guilty of. This creates confusion and self-doubt in the victim, making them question their own reality and behavior. Projection can cause significant emotional distress and self-doubt. Victims may begin to internalize the manipulator's accusations, leading to a negative self-image and increased vulnerability to further manipulation. In a workplace, a manager who is often late might accuse their employee of being unpunctual and unreliable, diverting attention from their own behavior and creating confusion and self-doubt in the employee. Self-awareness and clarity are essential in dealing with projection. It's important to recognize when someone is projecting their feelings or actions onto you and to maintain confidence in your own perceptions and behavior. Shifting the goalposts. Shifting the goalposts is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator constantly changes standards and criteria to avoid responsibility and control the victim. Manipulators use shifting the goalposts by setting standards that are impossible to meet or constantly changing the criteria for success. This creates a sense of frustration and helplessness in the victim, making them more likely to comply with the manipulator's demands to gain approval. Shifting the goalposts can lead to chronic frustration and a feeling of inadequacy. Victims may feel that they can never meet the manipulator's expectations, leading to decreased self-esteem and increased dependence on the manipulator. In a professional setting, a manager might set unrealistic sales targets and then change the criteria for success once the targets are met, making the employee feel constantly inadequate and stressed. Fairness and consistency are essential in dealing with shifting the goalposts. It's important to recognize when standards are being unfairly changed and to set clear boundaries and expectations. Changing the subject. Changing the subject is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator diverts attention from the issue at hand to avoid accountability and control the conversation. Manipulators use changing the subject by introducing unrelated topics or focusing on minor details to distract from the main issue. This creates confusion and distraction, making it difficult for the victim to hold the manipulator accountable. Changing the subject can lead to significant confusion and frustration. Victims may feel that their concerns are not being addressed and struggle to maintain focus on the main issue, leading to increased vulnerability to manipulation. In an argument, one partner might bring up past mistakes or unrelated issues whenever they are confronted with their behavior, diverting attention from the main problem and avoiding accountability. Staying focused and assertive are crucial in dealing with changing the subject. It's important to recognize when someone is trying to divert attention and to steer the conversation back to the main issue. Infantilization. Infantilization is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator treats the victim like a child to control their actions and decisions. Manipulators use infantilization by undermining the victim's autonomy, making decisions for them, and treating them as incapable of handling their own affairs. This creates a dependency on the manipulator and diminishes the victim's confidence and independence. Infantilization can cause significant demoralization and dependency. Victims may feel incapable and reliant on the manipulator for decision-making and support, leading to decreased autonomy and self-esteem. In a workplace, a manager might micromanage an employee, making decisions for them and treating them as incapable of handling their responsibilities. This creates a sense of dependency and diminishes the employee's confidence and autonomy. Respect and autonomy are essential in dealing with infantilization. It's important to assert your own capabilities and seek independence from those who treat you as incapable. Playing on insecurities. Playing on insecurities is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator exploits the victim's fears and anxieties to control their actions and emotions. Manipulators play on insecurities by highlighting the victim's perceived weaknesses, comparing them unfavorably to others, and creating a sense of fear and inadequacy. This makes the victim more likely to comply with the manipulator's demands to gain approval and avoid further criticism. Playing on insecurities can cause significant emotional damage, leading to decreased self-esteem and increased vulnerability to manipulation. Victims may become overly reliant on the manipulator for validation and approval. In a cult, the leader might exploit followers' insecurities by claiming that only they can provide the validation and guidance needed to overcome their fears, creating a dependency that is hard to break. Self-confidence and support are essential in dealing with manipulative tactics that play on insecurities. It's important to build a positive self-image and seek validation from within rather than relying on others. Fake moralization. Fake moralization is a manipulative tactic where the manipulator pretends to have high moral standards to control the victim's actions and feelings. Manipulators use fake moralization by criticizing the victim's behavior based on supposed moral standards, creating a sense of guilt and shame. This tactic allows the manipulator to control the victim's actions and emotions by positioning themselves as morally superior. Fake moralization can lead to significant confusion and manipulation. Victims may feel guilty and ashamed, leading them to comply with the manipulator's demands to avoid further criticism and gain moral approval. In a public context, a person might criticize others for not adhering to certain moral or ethical standards, while their own behavior contradicts these standards. This creates a sense of guilt and confusion in the victim, making them more likely to comply. Discernment and authenticity are crucial in dealing with fake moralization. It's important to recognize when someone is using moral standards manipulatively and to maintain your own sense of integrity. Understanding and recognizing manipulative behaviors is crucial for your mental well-being and personal growth. By identifying tactics such as gaslighting, guilt-tripping, isolation, love bombing, and others, you can protect yourself and regain control over your life. Trust in your own perceptions and seek support from trusted friends and professionals. Remember, maintaining healthy boundaries and fostering genuine relationships are key to overcoming manipulation. Stay vigilant and prioritize your well-being, and you will foster a life of authenticity and strength. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insights and guidance.